Hello and welcome back to Eve Space Project. So, continuing off where we left off last time, we are docking our little ship. We have a few Kerbals in orbit, we have a few space tourists in orbit, and we're just trying to complete some missions. But as is usual for my episodes at the moment, first we have to do a little bit of caretaking. So, I'm rearranging the space station just to make things a little bit easier for dismantling. Now, the main reason for this to begin with is because on the left hand side of the screen at the moment, the inflatable module, not on the left, on the right hand side, the inflatable module is the science module that I'm currently using, and it has the biggest capacity for science, so I want to continue using that attached to this particular space station for the moment, and then just remove the other modules as we go. And to start off, I'm removing the first probe that I sent up, and obviously we have to do this piece by piece, which takes a little bit of time because my engineers are not skilled enough to do entire crafts at one time. It also negates any issues with sort of drifting out of range, as that tank nearly did. So you always pick up the equipment from these. Everything that's recycled turns into equipment, providing you have a storage vessel set up to consume those parts. So as you recycle them, it'll pull the equipment in, and that, because of the way that my setup sort of works in this, although it's all standard, I can turn that into material kits using some of the facilities, or I can turn that into rocket parts if I really need it. For the moment, I just use equipment for reconfiguring certain things and to have a little bit of supply there if I needed them. But as you can see here, it's a bit of a long process, and after a while I rearrange some of the other parts just to sort of even out the balance between the two. It was at this moment that I noticed that the science module was actually on the left hand side, not on the right hand side, but when I did that I thought it was on the right hand side. But we rearrange it and dock it over. It's got plenty of Molyneux propellant and can move about itself because it's got a drone control unit. So we do a bit of rearranging, and then it's time to sacrifice this entire section. So we just literally start at the end and work our way back in. And I miss a couple of the RCS ports there, but that's not too bad. Now, I do have a setup in my game where all debris is constant, so I try and minimise it wherever I can. But sometimes I forget, problems happen, and it might come around and whack the station at some point. It has happened before. The entire reason I started filming this for YouTube in the first place was because within 2 weeks I had two separate instances of putting a ship into orbit and being whacked by some orbital debris, and the chances of that happen are ridiculous, and that's why I started doing the stuff for YouTube, because I thought, if I want to prove that it happened, I might as well film everything that's going on. So as you can see here, we're just building a few little probes, and these probes are just little relays that are going to help with a bit of distance. So this is to build up the relay network in preparation for colonisation. This isn't, I think this one went out to do a mission, but in general I'm just launching these out, trying to do what I can do, and seeing where it goes from there. So if a mission crops up where I need to put a relay satellite, I can build it in orbit and just launch it into the orbit that's required fairly easily. And if I wanted to, I don't have to, but if I wanted to, I can bring these back, recycle it, and build a new one from the parts, which would essentially give me a brand new probe to complete a mission that starts after this probe has already been built, if it says build a new one. So it has its advantages. But after a few little burns, we get it up into orbit, and we just do a little bit of science because I can. All science is useful science, so sometimes I send it back, sometimes I relay it. And from there we jump back to the station, and I made a bit of a mistake when I built this station. I didn't actually put a control node on the main station, so at the moment I'm using the autopilot to build it, but the easiest way to sort that is to grab one of these little points, which is for extending, for building using extraplanetary launch pads, and destroy the bit at the end and snap it on. So I've designed something in the spaceplane hangar, and all that I do is make sure that the prime node is at the end of it, and it will create from there. And as you can see here, we have another little launcher. This is just my standard drone, and I'm just taking rocket parts up so that I can build my extension. And I sort of jumped through this because you've seen it all before. I am at the moment running on stock, so this is back to 5 times atmospheric pressure on Eve and the 90-kilometer atmosphere height. So by now I've gone back to the stock. I was having a lot of problems, and if things are sort of being worked out in a mod, I'll revert to stock. I prefer my mods to be fairly consistent, and they caused me a lot of problems when I was going through and moving bases and things. I lost a few ships because of the change in the atmosphere height that I didn't realise and things like that. I had some vessels that were skimming the atmosphere, although they're not doing much yet. But fairly standard descent. And although I can get away with it, I haven't reverted back to the basic thing with just the 4 boosters as opposed to the 8, just because it gives me a little bit extra delta V for lifting. And as you can see by how much fuel I've got here, I am getting quite low when I get to the station. But we get docked, and that gives us the ability to at least run part of this. Oh no, it runs all, so it'll run the full extension. And just to make sure that I don't get any strange wobbles, I'm transferring the rocket parts back over so that everything's nice and sorted in the right places, and then I set it up to use the rocket parts from the ship first. And as you can see in the main part, I had another little ship there, and I don't know why these used to have the IV and it doesn't for some weird reason on my install, but there's, I believe it's a pilot, an engineer and somebody else in this, or it's a pilot and an engineer in this, which I was returning for one of the missions. So because this is a new build, I just go through the entire thing. Bit of atmospheric heating, but I'm trying to keep it shallow as we go in, just so that I skim over the atmosphere until it gets to the point where I'll slow down. And we seem to be going quite nicely. These are interesting little ships. But unfortunately, I haven't quite got my re-entry sorted in this because it's far more aggressive on Eve. I expected to lose the fins, but as you can see there, my heat's creeping up in the actual main module. And we are gone. So that is 1 engineer and 1 pilot, both of them 2-star, that have died unfortunately. And because of this, it kind of annoys me, and I go on a tiny spending spree with a little bit of hiring. Now, because of the way that things are built, I don't ever hire anybody that's got high stupidity. I try and keep low stupidity only. The only person you can see there, I believe, is a tourist. But after a spending spree, we require some monies. Now, unfortunately, the easiest way to grab money is to just take some daft missions, fairly easy, and because I've got a little bit of liquid fuel and oxidizer on the station at the moment, I build another one of these relay probes, but I attach a few extra science modules, and I launch in a horrible fashion, but I managed to create the return. So all I do is push out to the edge to where this orbit is required, and then once I'm out there, I do almost an entire reverse, pretty much, so I'm spinning the opposite way. Why you'd need a retrograde satellite, I don't know. But we sling it the opposite way, and then we bring it back in, bring the orbit back in and fine tune it. And this is where something goes funnily wrong. It accepts the contract, as in the contract disappears, but it didn't complete. So I actually didn't get any money for doing that. I don't know why. I did have everything, I met every condition, and it just vanished. And I don't mind tweaking things when it's a problem that I understand, but I didn't get what was going on there, so I just ignored it. And because I ignored it and I needed a little bit more equipment up here for reconfiguring things, I decided just to sacrifice the entire ship. So because aerials are useful, I grabbed the aerial and then just went through and recycled everything else into into equipment, which will give me the ability to reconfigure things. And as is usual, because of the way that I built these, I have a little bit more life support supplies because I always forget about them. They're attached to the back. But there we go, we have another section here. So this is command section with some rotational things, and the top and bottom things that you can see sort of sticking out. They're kind of difficult to see, but they are automatic builders, which gives me a better efficiency. These things don't require people to work, so this can essentially be a drone ship. And right on the back of it there is another target for extending something, and the point of that is to extend this to have engines at some point in the future once I get a good technology level worked out. And here I've just created, I actually created this at the same time as the last little re-entry module, but I reckon because of the lift surface on this, it should be able to bounce through the atmosphere a little bit better. So I built one of these and plugged it on using Yield MechJib docking autopilot, or sort of. I always turn this off right at the last second because sometimes it presses against it and it just goes funny and it doesn't work properly. But now that we've done that, it is time to do a little bit more out at Eve's Moon, at Gilly. Gilly? I think it's Gilly. I always forget. Apologies if I get it wrong. But as we're on the way, another mission was to rescue somebody from orbit. So the first thing that I'm actually doing is rescuing them from the orbit of Eve, and then heading out to Eve's Moon. I'm just going to keep saying it that way so I don't get it wrong. So this takes quite a long time because of how low thrust this engine is. But at the moment we're carrying out some equipment, but not any rocket parts or other things. And the main point of this is actually to recover fuel and bring it back. So we head out to do our little grab and fun and rescue. And with a little bit of fine tuning, as you can see here, I miss because I forgot that that thing is offset. But with a little bit of adjustment we managed to grapple onto it. And then out comes a little Kerbal that has been rescued in a new suit, because all of the Kerbals have slightly different suits. And we release, and out goes the engineer. And I set that to consume for the equipment just in case we recycle that part to get rid of the space debris. But after this we have to head out to Eve's Moon. I'm sure it's Gilly, I can't remember. But we're heading out there, doing a normal little interception. And the great slow process is continuing, where we are slowing down. I'm skipping out most of the stuff with this engine because I absolutely hate it, and coupled with the manoeuvring at Gilly, where you have such a high time warp threshold, so you can't time warp under such an altitude and it takes ages to go around. It's just driving me slowly insane. And as you can see there, we eventually managed to sort ourselves out. And after my insanity is let go, we get back down to the base. This is very good at manoeuvring on the planet because of how low the thrust is, but just getting there and doing all the other manoeuvres is a royal pain. But we do a little bit of station keeping, and part of the reason for this is because when I rescue somebody, if I change sphere of influence and land them on Gilly, then I get them more experience very quickly, so it's a good idea to take every Kerbal out here. Get them to do what they need to do any fine tuning, and as it happens I actually left my engineer there on the station so that they can continue doing something, because they've now got enough life support to last, I think it's about a year or so. Some of the life support will last for a year at least. And from there, many burns later, we head back to the space station in orbit of Eve. And after a little docking manoeuvre, we set up some more building. So at the moment it's looking quite good, but there are a few things I want to get on with. Now, first on that list of next things to do is to send out some more satellites. Now we have scanning satellite here, which will do some orbital surveys of the planet. And next to this on the station we also had a relay satellite. Now this has some small relays, and as you can see here we have some bigger relays on this. And all we're doing is, the two of them were released, launched into orbit, and then I set some manoeuvre nodes. And as you can see by this, they're pretty long manoeuvre nodes because I am actually going for Kerbin. And I'm sending the two of them out. They were about 4 or 5 days apart, I believe. And that's all we're doing is heading the two of these to Kerbin. One of them is a relay. One of them has a couple of relay dishes on it and is a scanner. And the point is to scan Kerbin and then scan the moon. And possibly scan Minimus. And what I want to do is I want to send my equivalent of a von Neumann probe, which actually I'm messing about with it at the moment and trying to develop it. But essentially it's a probe that can land on the planet, on a planet or a moon, and mine materials into usable things and essentially replicate itself or replicate more. And I'm going to start small with replicating a few extra probes and then build it up from there, but I want to get it sort of standardized so that I can use it as I sort of step out further into the world. So the first stage of that is to get a relay in position around about Kerbin, and as you can see here, we just have a little bit of maneuvers to do around about the sun and some fine-tune adjustments on the way. And all I'm doing, I don't have Kerbal alarm clock installed because it has broken so many of my saves that I would rather just work on one thing at a time than rely on the alarm clock and have so many corrupt saves. If you've seen my previous issues, previous series, I managed to narrow down all of the issues to Kerbal alarm clock. Once I pulled that out, I had no issues whatsoever. So that's staying out for the moment until I know that it doesn't do that anymore. But as you can see here, we have a relay satellite already at Kerbin. Or scanning satellite, should I say. And then we're just bringing the second relay in. Luckily they can talk to each other, they can communicate back, and the idea being, the reason there's more than one is because obviously you want as much coverage of the system when you're sending drones out, and I'm going to be sending a few drones here. So here's the next one coming in, and I'm setting in manoeuvre nodes and I'm using MechJeb so that it makes it a little bit easier for me. But I'm keeping them at quite high altitude. I'm doing the burns low because of the Oberth effect giving me more delta V. So I'm using my initial burn low down but kicking myself back out into a higher orbit and then adjusting from there, which allows me to go polar and then just start the scanning. Now my first idea is to land a probe on Kerbin, but I'm humming and hawing as to what to do, as to whether to do that. So I just thought I'd scan Kerbin first, which will give me a rough idea of where to land something if I go to, but if I don't, I can move out to the moon and we'll see what happens. But next up, I launched this little recovery craft, and I have my little Kerbal that needs to get back to the planet, and no other pilots because it's drone controlled, and risking as few Kerbals as possible. But to complete the mission, this guy needs to go back. However, as it happened, I managed to pick up another mission to rescue another Kerbal. Some other space agency is fairly useless. So we're going to do the same rough idea again. Oh, it's a nice cryo shelter I'm rescuing from this time. So we just grab our lovely person, again a new spacesuit, and then all we're doing is going to grab hold of the cryo shelter with the grabber, and this time instead of destroying it, all I'm going to do is drag it into the atmosphere and then just release it and let it burn up on its own. Now, as it happens, this was a fairly uneventful re-entry, so this is pretty much summing up what we are doing at the moment. I'm waiting for the next load of updates because obviously Kerbal Space Program 1.6 has come out, and obviously because it's over the Christmas period, there are a lot of mod makers that won't be doing things over the Christmas period because they have, you know, lives, unlike me. So I'm waiting for those to be updated. Wild Blue Industries is one of the main ones I use, obviously, so I want that to be updated before I jump into 1.6 and start messing about with any other things. And there are a few parts that I think are going to help me make my von Neumann probes, so I don't want to mess about with the save as it is until that happens. So this is where we are at the moment. I've been messing about with things in a few different setups, but I haven't touched this save since this was made, which was actually at the same time as all the rest of the videos that came before this, the last two videos before this. But from there, Merry Christmas for the day before yesterday, and Happy New Year to everybody who's watching. It should be coming up soon. And again, don't drink as much as I would, because that bottle of rum was delicious. But thank you for watching. Merry Christmas, and I shall see you next time. Bye.